Hi friends, tonight we have Ben Brown from Connecticut College joining us to share more about what's going on at Conn College and what's exciting and new outside of these crazy times right now. I'm sure there's other things that are going on or things that you'd like to share with us, and kind of a general overview would be awesome, Ben. So welcome back. We've got to see each other last year in person, but it's not happening this year. So at least I'm glad we could do this way.
Certainly. Flattered to be back, even if it's virtual. I look forward to seeing you folks in person when normal health circumstances resume, but this is the next
Absolutely.
best thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, my presentation will take probably about 15, 20 minutes or so, and I will hit some of the high points of Connecticut College, including how we approach the liberal arts and how we approach career services, study abroad, and also student life. And I think you'll find that all those things are very much intertwined at Connecticut College. So speaking of high points, I'd say that we are pretty high up above campus looking at a beautiful view. I missed this view.
Yeah, this is beautiful. That's a beautiful view.
What I love about the view, especially on the ground level, if you stand right where my arrow is on the far left side of the green, and you look out toward the green, down, that's due south, you can see the Long Island Sound. So that's salt water there.
Wow.
And that body of water running on top of the screen, that's the Thames River, which feeds the Long Island Sound, becomes the Atlantic Ocean. So you're right at the mouth of it.
So cool.
Other spots worthwhile knowing, this big field happens to be our soccer field. So those students interested in participating or spectating they have a very easy trip to get to some pretty exciting athletic events, and taking a bus to a far-flung field is not necessary to see a soccer game.
So was this like the center of campus here that we're looking at? Would that be the center?
That is the center of campus.
Nice.
And the buildings here on the river side of the green, those are primarily academic buildings, and on our side of the green, those are residential.
Got it.
And that bridge on top of the river, that's Interstate 95. So that'll take you to Boston if you go north, and if you come back our way, south, New York City.
Cool.
About 2 hours. Change this. So a little bit of background on Conn before we get into the things that are very distinctive about it. We're a small private liberal arts college in New London, Connecticut, about 1,800 students. And I recall we spoke a lot about New London last year, including some eateries and some highlights on the galleries and the historical spots. So if that video is still active, I think it would be a resource for
It is. It's
for
on our Estrella Facebook page. So if anyone wants to see the 5 fast facts with Ben, lots of good tips in that.
And I'll definitely give you the 411 on New London through that video.
Cool.
But we're going to get into academics for the purpose of this presentation. And again, I think you'll find a lot of things will be very distinctive about how Conn approaches the liberal arts. But before we get into those specifics, let's start with the first year and things that students can look forward to. The first thing will be a first-year seminar course. That's a writing intensive course that students will take in the first semester of their first year. And the beauty of the first-year seminar course is that there are a variety of topics offered. Some favorites that I've seen having perused the course book, there's a course on pilgrimage in the modern world from the Holy Land to Disneyland. So if anyone has made commercial or religious pilgrimages, commercial including Disneyland, that could be a compelling course. And another favorite was called How Plants Shoot Projectiles. That's how plants are carefully selected to create effective bows and arrows. And the entire campus is an arboretum, so we're in a pretty environmentally friendly area. You also have your advising team to look forward to in your first year, an academic advisor who will be teaching your first year seminar course. Staff advisor, usually a dean or director, someone in a position more similar to mine, and their responsibility is to acquaint you with various resources on campus, such as the Academic Resource Center, student counseling, student accessibility services, so on and so forth. Career advisor, we'll talk about career prep a little bit later, but it's worth mentioning now that the career advisor will be sitting in your first year seminar course. It's a way that we make sure that career prep and academics are integrated. And finally, your student advisor, usually a student of sophomore status or greater. And for any students who are inclined to give back, that is a great leadership role on campus. So I'd say this is my most important slide, and this is probably the thing that's most distinctive about Connecticut College's approach to the liberal arts. And our program, our curriculum is called Connections. We're really punny at Connecticut College. So the purpose of Connections is to make everything very integrative, to connect with each other. So at Con, we think of the major themes of liberal arts, your major coursework, your coursework outside your major, career preparation, study abroad, and global and local engagement as working together rather than in the aggregate. And I'll show you a few ways of how this is done. Students will, of course, declare a major by the end of their sophomore year, but in the sophomore year, after you've had the chance to explore a little bit in your first year, you get the chance to choose between an integrative pathway or an interdisciplinary center. And I'll start with the pathways, and I'll differentiate these two. The pathways are collections of courses that are united by a common theme, and students can take classes across these different disciplines related to the common theme to gain an appreciation of how the liberal arts applies outside of their major. So already you're starting to find connections between your major coursework and coursework outside your major. And I'll give you some examples of integrative pathways. There are 14. We have a pathway on public health. So perhaps students who may be interested in pre-med may be drawn to that. One on entrepreneurship, and that was created specifically with students aspiring for business school in mind. We've seen students who have joined the peace and conflict pathway, which is about how war has been waged and how peace has been achieved across human history. We have a pathway on global capitalism. My personal favorite is one of the newest pathways. There's one on food. So again, we talked about lobster rolls in that Facebook video. So food's never far from my mind. And in your sophomore year, you can declare a pathway regardless of your major. Ditto for centers. An economics major need not default to the entrepreneurship major. A bio major need not default to public health. We want you to explore. And in your junior year in a pathway, you're going to have the opportunity to create your own research question, which you will ultimately present your senior year through something called the All-College Symposium. But in your junior year, you're going to be able to select classes, select an internship, and a study abroad destination if you choose to do so. That's going to help you get at that research question. And to throw you some examples, we had a student in the cities and schools pathway who was really interested in exploring ways in which he could contribute to the greater diversification of hockey, his favorite sport, from the amateur ranks to the pro ones. And he helped, he actually created his own community service project in which he would invite residents of Greater New London to come on campus and take free skating lessons at our ice arena. So he was able to find a neat overlap between his coursework, and he organized his courses around getting at that question, with community service, and he also interned at a local prep school to gain an appreciation of kind of how diversity is implemented in school settings. With the interdisciplinary centers, there's 5 of them. Remember, there are 14 pathways. And because there are only 5 centers, they are application-based, whereas pathways are open enrollment. And the 5 centers, there's one on the environment, one on arts and technology, one on international studies and the liberal arts. We have one on community action and public policy, and finally, race and ethnicity. Here's the key difference between the centers and the pathways. I think the pathways are a great option for students who want a little bit more flexibility in their curriculum. And centers will require that students will take a course every semester, it's a seminar course that's part of their center. So I think students who appreciate a little bit more structure may be drawn to the centers, and centers are roughly the equivalent of a workload of a minor. But regardless of what students choose, they are going to have access to research opportunities and the chance to present to that all-college symposium. And if anyone is curious, I'm happy to provide a list of what students presented on last November 2019, and we'll probably be having that virtually this year.
So about what percentage of students then are applying and in the centers versus the pathways?
Total enrollment in pathways and centers is about 62%, and about 15% of students are in a center.
Got it.
Which makes sense because there's about a third of as many centers as there are pathways. But these are optional academic programs. You can choose one or the other or neither, but we see this as a very distinguishing part of Khan's curriculum, and a majority of students are doing it now. And this senior class, the class of 2021, is only the second to matriculate at Khan under this new curriculum. So it's relatively new.
And is there an intention that those centers there would be centers added, or do they evolve, or do they, I know it sounds like they're newer, so maybe that's still up in the air.
No, it's a great question. The centers are older academic programs. The pathways were actually influenced by the centers. We wanted to create a center-like experience with a few adjustments for more students. And pathways were actually created with the help of students, so we fully expect more pathways to be added. We have one on gender identity under construction right now, for example.
Great, thank you.
Global engagement, we'll discuss this a bit. A small footnote here. You can see in the center shots, this student has a picture with a camel. I'd say it's incumbent upon every student to get a picture with a camel because we are the Connecticut College Camels. Hump days are a big deal at Con. But a couple highlights of global engagement. Con runs a few of its own study abroad programs called Study Away, Teach Away programs. These are led by Connecticut College professors and only open to Con students. I think it's good for students who want a smaller, more intimate abroad experience, but still just as practical and experiential. And we've led trips to Cuba and Mexico, South Korea, Vietnam, Perugia, Italy. South Africa's on the list as well. But we have partnerships with other colleges and universities too. And we perform audits on those to make sure that the credits transfer upon return to Connecticut College. We have a 2-semester language component as well at Con. 11 languages offered is another way we provide for global engagement opportunities. And one of the newest additions to global engagement occurred summer 2020. We added a new component to our curriculum called the Social Difference in Power component. And each student beginning with the class 2024 will take 2 classes designated as Social Difference in Power classes. These are classes that focus on systemic inequality, oppression, racism, and figuring out how these systems have disproportionately affected historically marginalized groups. So very timely and interdisciplinary way to add this to the curriculum. Our campus is closed as of now, but when it does open to the public, you will run into the Hale Center for Career Development as soon as you drive into the front gates. I definitely recommend checking it out. It is a pristine space, freshly renovated, and it's located right at the front door of campus. And I hope that speaks to just how important career prep is with regard to the Connections curriculum. It's a 4-year program, and as I discussed, you will meet your career advisor in your very first year, who will be sitting in your first year seminar course. And this is especially useful because you will have the opportunity to engage in career development in your first year by taking the first year career prep class. That's going to help you hone different aspects of the job search, polishing cover letters, perfecting your resume, honing your interviewing skills. And that's going to unlock $500 of $3,000, which you can accrue over the course of your time at Connecticut College for flexible career funding. That can include money for internships, transportation to and from the internships, materials, workshops, professional development conferences. So we really try and take the sting out of unpaid internships with that stipend. And pre-professional advising as well. Advisors can specialize in pre-professional school admissions and programs, which will give students a little bit of a leg up as they begin to apply to these schools. And we've had remarkable admission rates for law school, business school, and medical school in the last few years. And we definitely attribute that to the Connections curriculum that's giving students a little bit more tools in their back pocket than, say, just economics for business school, a medical health science background for med school, or government law for law school. Students are more versatile. And finally, the honor code. If you want to know anything about student life at Connecticut College, this is where you start. The honor code, it's one of the few honor codes on American college campuses that is student enforced socially and academically, and signing it is a tradition of orientation. The honor code's really about creating a culture of trust, and an example of that is that students get to schedule their own final exams and take those exams unproctored. So if anyone out there is adverse to early morning exams, fear not. That does not have to dominate your finals week. But the other part of honor code is shared governance, which means we really value student opinions as well as the opinions of faculty and staff whenever we're making major administrative decisions. And whenever we're trying to make a decision, you can bet we're soliciting students' ideas. The social difference in power was created with students in mind, and they voiced their opinions over the summer. Some of the pathways I discussed, those were created with student feedback, and students continue to give feedback by sitting on advisory boards of the respective majors, centers, and pathways. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for shared governance. There are numerous ways to get involved, especially if maybe you're not inclined to run for a position on Student Government Association, though that is the shared governance wing of the student body. There are far more ways to get involved in shared governance than just the student government. So shared governance for everybody.
Do you know, this isn't just a random question, does your board of trustees have a student that sits on it?
We have 3 young alumni representatives, and the Student Government Association will work alongside the Board of Trustees. So they kind of act as the liaison. But
that's great. I like that. I like a lot of times when schools have that shared governance or that kind of a system on their campus, you do see that it actually goes all the way up into higher level leadership, that they value the students' perspectives on things and actually allow them to participate. So it's great you have some young alumni on the board.
Yeah, they'll serve for 3-year terms. So you'll have an election as your class gets ready to graduate, but one step at a time. We'll savor our 4 years here, right?
Exactly.
I wanted to bring along some campus shots, the library. This is one of my favorite spaces on campus, renovated about 3 years ago. It used to be a multi-purpose space, and now it is home to our Global Study and Engagement Center. And this is where a few of our centers, which I discussed earlier, where they're headquartered, as is our study abroad office, a few language labs and collaboration rooms. And it's also a great study space. And it's beautiful. It looks like a rocket ship from the inside. And my personal favorite, this is the Arboretum, which is located directly across the street from campus. And the Arboretum will be home to various events, musical performances. We've had Shakespeare in the Arboretum. Students will go sledding down the big hill. They'll go for walks in the Arboretum. You can see some students are socializing here. And the Arboretum is beautiful space. And if anyone is interested in environmental studies, you can give tours of the Arboretum to the general public.
Cool.
Neat job opportunity on campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's difficult for us to interact in person, but I wanted to direct folks to some resources, including some videos on our website, virtual tours will enable you to meet a current student, online information similar to this, and all of our interviews are virtual, so you need not fly out to New London, Connecticut.
Are interviews required, Ben?
Not required, but I strongly recommend them. They're very conversational, and I think they're a good supplement to the application, and we don't have a supplemental essay. So I think interviews are a more fun way to add a little bit extra to your app.
Yeah, I tell students that if colleges are offering an opportunity to interview, that it's typically a very good idea to do that, just because it's a way for them to become multidimensional in your eyes as a file reviewer. It's great to actually be able to place a person's personality, be able to see what they're really like, engage in conversation, and maybe even learn more about them than what they have space to include on their application.
That's why we do it. We want to get to know students, and we also want to give students the opportunity to get to know us and figure out if this is where they may want to spend their 4 years.
Absolutely.
Put my contact information here, so if any viewers come across this and have additional questions, they are welcome to contact me.
Awesome. With the application process, Ben, are you, obviously, as you just said, that in terms of the interview piece, what are the other main components, the other things that you're really looking at in an applicant?
The common application essay is something that we particularly hone in on. And yes, we are looking for writing ability, but the essay often gives us a lot of insight into how students troubleshoot problems and perhaps some of these problems are still ongoing, but how they've managed to confront them, address them, and take steps to solving them. And I think we hone in on that so much because, as we discussed, the honor code and shared governance really gives students a sense of responsibility. And while there are numerous resources available to students should they ever need help, the honor code gives students a great deal of supported autonomy as well. I think the essay is a great way to demonstrate that students are able to take initiative. And if that initiative is being used to ask for help, great. It's something that they're going to be afforded at Conn College.
Academically, what kind of student do you feel like would be the most successful at Conn College? What's the profile?
Yeah, I think as far as the admission process or while they're at Conn College?
I guess it would be the admission process, looking at how do you identify those kids or those young adults who would feel would be academically successful once enrolled there. What are the indicators to you that they would be successful? Is it rigor of their courses? Is it certain grades? Is it certain types of other things on the application that you're really looking at?
We certainly want to see students who have challenged themselves, but not necessarily for the sake of the admission process itself, but they're going to be challenged at Conn as well, and I guess to also answer how students of a certain academic mindset can thrive at Conn once they get here. I think we see successful students at Conn start off as students who exhibited a great deal of curiosity in their high school settings. And we learned a little bit about the Connections curriculum and how it really allows students to push the boundaries of the liberal arts. And we fully realize that some students may not necessarily have the opportunity to do that in the way that they perhaps hunger to in college in their own high school settings. But we think that students who are willing to push those boundaries not only appear competitive in our admission process, but they get the most out of what's offered at Con through the Connections curriculum. So now that I think about it, I think it's almost the same answer to both.
Good, thank you. Is there anything I haven't asked about that you want to share? Is there any other things?
Sure. I'd mention the fact that Connecticut College is really fortunate to be able to offer a robust merit-based aid in its admission process. And to give you an overview of merit-based aid and financial aid in general, we meet 100% of demonstrated need, and we use the FAFSA and CSS profile. And we use merit-based aid as a building block to meeting that 100% of demonstrated need. And in the past few years, merit-based aid awards have ranged from $10,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
Every student gets looked at for merit-based aid, so no separate essay, no separate application. We've been test optional for about 11 years now. You don't have to submit testing for the general admission process or to be considered for merit-based aid. And we primarily focus on academic performance, grades, and the courses taken when considering merit-based aid, but we are looking at everything. And I think with merit-based aid, it's our way of really making Con a little bit more palatable as far as the cost is concerned. And I think students who have demonstrated that kind of performance in high school, we want to reward them accordingly. And we calculate that merit-based aid and need-based aid independently, meaning students can receive one or the other or both.
And with the merit awards, is that typically something you notify them about upon acceptance? Does it come much later? When would they know about that?
You will get a merit-based award with an admission letter. So
Okay.
Students who qualify for merit-based aid will see that outlined right then and there.
Awesome. And what are your deadlines? What application plans do you guys have this year? What are you rolling on?
Sure. 2 rounds of early decision. November 15th is the first deadline, and January 1st is a joint deadline between early decision 2 and regular decision. So no early action, but students who consider Con their first choice think early decision, whether it be 1 or 2, no real difference except for timing. Those could be good options to showcase that enthusiasm to be at Con.
And students applying in that ED1 round, when do you anticipate? Is it before the end of the year? Is it January? When do they usually go out?
We typically roll out early decision 1 notifications by mid-December, usually December 15th, give or take.
Got it. Awesome. Well, this has been really helpful. And I promised Ben that I would also mention that this was kind of a general overview, but students, you absolutely should be taking advantage of some of the virtual opportunities that Con College is offering right now. You can get an opportunity to do a deeper dive into specifics about what you're looking for, the academic programs. I love that you include students, current students in those kinds of things too, Ben, tours and all of that, because I think that's one of the things that's really missing with not being able to get onto campus is families and students are missing that opportunity to really see actual students in action and talk with them about their experiences. So any opportunities that our families have to engage with actual students from the university, from the college, it's really, we found that it's very valuable for them to have those conversations. So thank you for including your students in that. And thank you for taking the time also to chat with us, because I know you guys are busy. This is a very different recruitment cycle than you've ever experienced and probably ever will again. So I'm very grateful that you took some time to chat with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Hopefully I'll make it back to Hudson in the near future. So hopefully we'll stay safe in the meantime.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben.